The Profit Constructors presents Construction Junction, the junction between accounting and construction. Please welcome our host, Tanya Schulte.
Welcome to our sneak peek edition of the Construction Junction podcast. We're so excited to start this new project in a new year, but we are doing this one little sneak peek that you get to see and be a part of here at the end of 2020. We're so excited for 2021 and all that brings. Today, we're talking about Knowify. I cannot wait to tell you about this topic. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. But B, it's a topic that I feel like comes the closest as possible to epitomizing this idea that we're talking about with the construction junction, which is the junction where construction and accounting meet, right? So Knowify does that in so many ways. A few years ago, I wrote an article for QBO Chat. I highly recommend it. It's a website that you can go and seek out. Kathy Iconis runs it. And in this article, I had the opportunity to write about how construction and accounting meet in the form of QuickBooks Online and Knowify together. And what I said in the article, and I still feel like it holds true even though it's been a few years ago, is that if anyone has told you as a construction company owner, or even as a construction company accounting advisor or financial advisor or consultant, that QuickBooks Online is not a good choice for a construction company, I'd like to challenge that misconception and say that QuickBooks Online, in conjunction with Knowify, see what I did there? It's the Construction Junction, and we're creating conjunctions, is one of the very best ways to do construction accounting. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Back in the day when we were using QuickBooks Desktop, which I still like and very much love, I'm an Intuit person. I've been using QuickBooks products for 20-something years. When we were doing construction accounting in QuickBooks Desktop, we were able to pull, if we were using Premier editions of QuickBooks, we were able to pull some really cool reporting. So if we're using the Contractors edition of QuickBooks Desktop, we could pull some reports that were very specific to what the construction industry needs to see. Things like, what is our budgets versus actuals? What does our work in progress look like? What percentage of completion have we completed on this job? And all of that was available to us fairly easily if we had the right edition of QuickBooks Desktop. These days, if we go pull up QuickBooks Online, we're not going to have all the information as readily available. And 5 years ago, when my company and I started working with clients in QuickBooks Online, we had quite a few workarounds that we had to do to create and recreate those types of reports that we were used to being able to find in the desktop version. That is until I found Knowify. Knowify really changed the game for me because, and this is what I said in my article that I wrote for Kathy Iconis over at QBO Chat, Knowify does for construction accounting what QuickBooks Desktop never really could do, and that is join the accounting piece with the project management piece in a really beautiful way. Knowify becomes your project management tool that's focused on the numbers, and I love that about them, that they focus so heavily and so well on the number side and the job costing side, not just the project management side. And it has a beautiful and powerful two-way sync that brings all of those numbers and all of that powerful financial information from Knowify into your QuickBooks Online and marries it really well with all of the other financial information that you want to keep track of over in QuickBooks Online. And in the end, what you have is this really beautiful ecosystem, if you will, wherein the folks that are out in the field that are working in Knowify can communicate in a very meaningful and powerful and even sometimes beautiful, if you want to know how I feel about accounting, beautiful way with the accounting team and with the internal office team. So all of that stuff that used to be very painfully moved from the field and from the field personnel's head to the accounting team and to the accounting team's head. And believe me, I've been in this industry a long time, and I've been that person on the inside in the construction accounting office saying, please, Mr. Project Manager, please, Mr. Foreman, I need your payroll information. I need your labor data. I need your information about what materials you purchased for this job. I need to know what day you guys were on the job. I need to know what day you were done working on the job. All of that information is now stored while the field workers are out in the field using the Knowify mobile app and able to be processed by the accounting department in a really meaningful way, in a way that makes sense as we're looking back and looking at KPIs and looking at the numbers that management wants to see and learning from the data. And when we dive in today, one of the things I'm hoping we can cover is how we can really hone in on our budgeting and our estimating and do that in such a way that it makes sense to use in the future. Because that's really what it's all about. What it comes down to is accounting has often been about the historical facts, those historical pieces that everyone does need to know. We need to be able to report on tax reforms accurately. And so that's very important. So the compliance side and the tax reporting side and other reporting sides of it are very important. But if we want to make our business better, if we want to grow our construction business, if we want to have better ways of doing things, then we need to take a look at the data in a new and more meaningful, more powerful way, and let the data inform us and let the data help us make better decisions. And so by taking all the information of what's happening real time out in the field, we're able to begin making better decisions, sometimes within the same week. So if we can see that suddenly we've gone over budget for the hours that we labor, that the hours that we budgeted out on a job, if suddenly we budgeted 40 hours and this week we have crossed over and now we're into 50 hours for this week on that job, we're able to stop right then and there and find out why. And we don't have to wait until payroll is turned in 2 weeks later. And we don't have to wait until the end of the month when the month is closed and we finally get our work in process reports. We can now address that right now in real time and understand what's happening out in the field, how it's affecting our numbers, how it's affecting our business, how it's affecting our business growth, and what impact it could have on our future. And so that's a huge part of what our team sees as our role when the Profit Constructors team is helping our clients and we're helping them grow their business and make their business better. One of our major roles for them is to help them take all of these massive amounts of data that are necessary and required for good construction accounting and good construction accounting reporting and pull all of that together in a way that's meaningful, in a way that makes sense to the construction company owner, and in a way that helps us drive the business forward in a better trajectory than it has been driving before. And so that's what it's all about for us on the Profit Constructors team, is helping construction owners do it better. And one of the things that I love about everyone over at Knowify, including the expert that you're going to meet today, who I'm fortunate to not only know through Knowify, but I think now to call a friend, is that they also are wanting to move construction company owners in a new direction and help them make their businesses better and help them move forward. Not that long ago, I got to interview one of the co-founders of Knowify. And one of the things that he brought up that they often see when they're talking to construction company owners, when they're out at trade shows or various events where they go and talk to the people who are in their market, is that a lot of those construction company owners are very good at what they do. They're very good electricians. They're very good plumbers. They're very good roofers. They're very good masons and general contractors. They're very good at what they do. Technically, as far as their trade goes, they're the best. But they have a lot of knowledge and experience and wisdom that's sort of locked up inside their head. And one of the goals of our team and of Knowify, I know, and their team is to help construction company owners get all of that really good wealth of wisdom and knowledge and information out of the construction company owner's head and into a system, and within that system to create repeatable processes and things that people can use to drive that company forward, so that the construction company owner can just go out and be really good at what they do and also have a life, right? Also have some time to go on vacation with their family and not be worrying the entire time that they're going on vacation whether or not their construction company is moving forward in the way that they want it to. So with all of that said, I cannot tell you how excited I am in the next segment to introduce our expert from Knowify. And we're also going to meet someone who is a user of Knowify, who's fairly new to using Knowify, and we're going to find out how he uses it and what he wants to learn. And hopefully that can help inform you as well if you're out there wanting to know more about Knowify. So someone who has really a piece, they have like some skin in the game because he is using Knowify. And so let's find out what our expert and our user can help us learn about Knowify in the next couple of segments. Thanks, and I'll be right back.
If you would like to share your company or product on the Construction Junction, email hello@theprofitconstructors.com to become a sponsor.
Welcome back. Like I said, I'm super excited to be talking about Knowify today. And I have with me here today our expert about Knowify. I think you could easily identify who that might be. He's got his Knowify shirt on today. Taryn from Knowify. And we also have joining us today a Knowify user, which is Ryan from Contour Audio. And so we're going to dive into this Knowify topic a little bit more deeply than we already have, and find out some more about it first from our expert. So Taryn, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background and where you were before you even came to Knowify.
Yeah, so I've actually held a variety of odd jobs all over the construction industry, mostly because my family has always worked in the industry. And so, through them, I've had a lot of different positions and a lot of different experience, ranging from, surveying, working on actually laying out, the job site itself before construction, and then working for architects and helping design the homes. And then beyond that, I've also worked for some commercial general contractors doing just, helping out with site supervision, and just kind of seeing a little bit of everything that goes on, throughout the life of a construction project.
Nice.
So that's really, that's really my background. And also, my father's been building homes for, I believe over 30 years now. So, I've always seen the bones of the house all the way through to the people moving in. It's exciting to watch. I always like it a lot. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you and I have talked about that before too, like that we kind of have a similar background. My grandfather was also in construction and carpentry, and then it just seemed like a natural fit when I kind of moved into that construction world and started working in construction offices. So, awesome. Yeah. So tell us about Knowify from your perspective. What is Knowify, and how can a construction company owner really benefit from the use of Knowify?
Yeah, so Knowify, to put it the most simply, is a project management software for contractors. But what we really focus on, what makes us unique, is we look a lot at the dollar figures that go into project management. So obviously it's nice to have things that manage your schedule, a to-do list, things like that. And we have that in Knowify, of course, but what we really want the contractor to know when using Knowify is, how much have I spent on this job? How much did I expect to spend? And how much am I making? So you're getting a variety of different types of reporting here, where it's not just, here's how much you spent, here's how much you made, but also here's how closely you are estimating the job compared to how much you're actually spending. So if you do a similar job to this in the future, I can use that actual cost from the past to then, build out my estimated costs in the future. And, when you have better budgets, you end up quoting better prices and, seeing the profit margins that you really want in your jobs. And that's really where Knowify thrives, is giving people the tools to, actually run their projects in that format.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's one of the first things that drew me to Knowify was the ability to create really good, really accurate budgets and have that carry through, like you said, and compare versus actuals. So can we dive in and talk a little bit more about the reporting that you guys create out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on a job-by-job basis, we do let you divide up your budgets into three main categories of the job, where you have labor, material, and subcontractor costs. But then everything in your budget can be divided into what Knowify calls phases, which are really just sub-budgets of the job. And again, it's nice to have the overall number. Here's how much we spent, here's how much we budgeted. But then to get more information, more usable information out of Knowify, you can then say, well, here's how much I spent versus how much I budgeted on rough-in specifically, on installation specifically, on things like that. So that way you can see, well, we're actually doing very well when we are installing the, whatever the system may be. We work with a variety of different industries. but say we're actually under budgeting our rough end, it becomes more expensive than we expect every time, and that's where we're losing some of the money on these jobs. I've actually worked with customers who have told me after using Knowify for over the course of a year, they said, we took some services that we used to provide and just completely cut them out. And we realized that we can't sell these at a profit, so we just can't sell them at all. And they said it actually ended up changing their business, and they were seeing much better results in all of their projects moving forward.
I love that, because what you just said is that Knowify can help you see the numbers in brand new ways, right? I love that. Talk to us a little bit about how that budgeting process then kind of flows through Knowify.
Sure. So one thing I like to pride us on, as far as the Knowify product itself goes, is Knowify does its absolute best to make sure that nothing is entered twice. And so if you take the time to build a detailed budget on a project and say, here's my list of materials, here's all the hours I'm going to need. If you really get your budget set up nicely, then you can use that information to then flow through into the contract. And then you will click a button once everything's live. Now you're ordering those materials. So it kind of saves you the time of having to keep re-entering, okay, well, I use this software for my budgeting, then I enter that into this software to then create a contract, and this one to send it out for signature. Knowify has a nice little one-stop shop when it comes to all those features. So, if you really do take the time to build out a detailed budget, aside from getting better reporting, more granular cost versus budget reporting, you get much quicker, easier, more automated functionality out of Knowify as a result of it throughout the rest of the life of the project.
I love that. And that also includes the really great two-way sync that you guys have built into QuickBooks Online, so that even that financial data is flowing nicely between the two.
Yeah, it's another thing that, again, we try our best to make sure that nothing has to be double entered. We have, I believe, the most in-depth integration with QuickBooks on the market right now, where you're not just saying, okay, Knowify sends the bills to QuickBooks and it's their problem from there. You can hit individual chart of accounts. You can hit individual products and services if you need. You're selecting your payment accounts. So we want Knowify to be mapped out well enough that if you're using Knowify, your input into QuickBooks is just as strong as it would be if you're entering it directly into QuickBooks instead.
I love that. Before we get too far away from the budgeting piece, talk to me about templates, because I know you had said when we're doing jobs that are similar to this in the future, I think that's another powerful piece of Knowify.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have two different types of templates that can really help a contractor build out their budget for a job. One of them is a full project plan template where you can lay out your list of phases and the different types of worker you need, the different types of material you need. And then whenever you start a new project, all you have to do is adjust the quantities based off of the different variants and size of the project. So that way I don't have to rebuild, okay, here's the list of everything I need to order. I just take the existing list and say, here's how many I need to order for this project. Similarly with hours, I don't have to add all of my different types of worker. Okay, I'm going to need a laborer, I'm going to need a foreman. They're already in there. So I just say, well, for this project, I need 100 hours. For this project, I need 30 hours. And it just kind of speeds up that process. And the other type of template that we build, we call them service templates. This is kind of like a calculator for estimating built into Knowify, where if you have a formula you use to estimate the cost of something, let's say I know how much I need to buy and how many hours it takes me for every square foot of, I'll use tiling as my random example here. For every square foot of floor I have to tile, this is what I need to buy. This is how many hours it takes my team. Then you can go to Knowify and build a budget by saying, use my tiling template. It's whatever it's going to be, 200 square feet. And Knowify is going to say, okay, here's everything you need to buy. Here's all the hours it's going to take. And if necessary, we can include additional information. And also here's a work order written up for your team, automatically included in the system. And so that's a nice way that you can speed things up, and get Knowify to do a little bit of the work for you.
I love that. Like I said, I wanted to touch on that before we got too far away from budgeting. I think another thing that I really like about Knowify, and let's dive into this next because it's kind of, I think once you've got that budget out there, we know what we're going to be working on. Tell us about the different types of invoicing that we can do. I know one of the things that drew me to it at the very beginning was the AIA invoice, the beautiful AIA template that's sitting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is always one of my go-to jokes, but we built this massive piece of software. Knowify could do so many things, and people will watch it, not even blink an eye. And then I'll show them that we create an AIA invoice, and everyone's just like, "Oh, there it is. It's possible." But yeah, we do help a lot building out the AIA format invoice documents. They'll call them like the G702, G703. It's one of the things that I'd say a lot of our users are the happiest to implement, because working with an Excel sheet or a Word document trying to put together an AIA invoice is such a pain, especially when you have to manually do the calculations. A big part of what Knowify does is keeps track of the outstanding balance of different items that are on your contract or on your schedule values. And so it helps you say, okay, well, so far you've invoiced 20%, so there's 80% remaining in this item. It keeps you from over invoicing, it keeps you from under invoicing, and it makes sure that you're putting together the document correctly, because the AIA invoice is kind of difficult to use, even software aside, it's difficult to understand. And so a lot of what our system does is make sure that when you're using the invoice, you're actually using it correctly as well. But off of the idea of other types of invoicing that we offer, we also offer simple progress invoicing. So if you may do a percentage of completion billing, but not in an AIA form, we have a lot of that as well. It's not uncommon for people to have a contract where they just do 40-40-20 contracts where you signed, I would like 40% of the contract, we're halfway through, I want another 40%, now we finished, there's my remaining 20%. And our system is built to make it very easy to send your customer invoices that represent that exact payment workflow. And then we also do offer cost plus or time and materials invoicing. This is a nice feature to have if you do have a lot of time and materials work where you are simultaneously entering the cost and building the invoice based off of contract terms. So let's say I build a contract in Knowify that says, we charge 10% markup and $60 an hour. As you enter bills, it's going to show you the cost of your job, add 10%, and include that in the next invoice without you having to manually write that invoice. And as you approve hours on the job, it's going to say, well, that times the $60 an hour rate, and it's going to add those to the invoice for you as well. It just keeps you having to double enter information, and it helps keep track of this so you don't have to, worry about, oh, did I remember to invoice these items? It's if you're entering them in, if they're showing as cost, then they'll show up as revenue.
Love that. Talk to us about, because you just mentioned as you're entering time. So again, I think there's so many powerful features within Knowify, but your scheduling and time tracking system is one of them. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, kind of off of when I first came in here and was introing Knowify, it's not just always about the dollar figures, because you want the project management as well. And that's where our scheduling comes in, and also through that, our time tracking, where Knowify has a system that lets you lay out the dates of your jobs. You can see which days you're working on too many things. You can move things around. And then based off of the dates of the job, you can take your employees and assign them to different jobs. And then that's integrated with our time tracking solution, which is on the smartphone, where as you change the schedule, things will pop up on their phone to say, hey, your schedule's changed. Here's what you're working on now instead. And they can open up the Knowify app to get information about that project. Where is the project? Who's the client? How do I get a hold of the client if I have questions? What's the scope of work? And then beyond just time tracking, we have features for entering purchases made on site, entering comments. We have the ability to upload images of the job site. And these are all, again, very important project management features to make sure that not only are we seeing the full story of how much we spent on the job, but we also know what happened on this project. We actually have a lot of new features that, I can't, drop a spoiler out here, but a lot of improvements around that coming too in the coming months.
Awesome. I'm excited to see those. So you just kind of briefly touched on something that I think is very important. It's something that I talked about in my intro to this whole topic, which is you have that mobile app. So the communication between the people that are out in the field and the people such as myself, say an advisor sitting back in the office, or the accounting team that's sitting back in the owner's office, they have the ability to have some real-time interaction with people out in the field through that app.
Yeah. One of the things that, this is another thing that a lot of our customers are a big fan of, and why they choose Knowify over the other solutions, is that app communicating with your office is updating you as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically when it comes to things like labor cost, because a lot of job costing solutions wait until you run payroll to update your labor cost. And the reality is, with how fast construction can move, by the time you run payroll, if you're updating your cost versus budget, then it may be too late. You may have overspent on this. Whereas if you use the loaded labor burden in Knowify and you have employees track their time, the hours will eventually be used for payroll. So they're kind of double use hours. Part of it is to then get them into a payroll solution, make sure everyone gets paid. But on the Knowify side, every hour is updating your labor cost versus budget to show you where you stand on that job, with every entry. And again, that's really the benefit, is that I'm not going to have to wait every 2 weeks to get an update, because we've now gone through another payroll schedule. It's going to be updating with every entry, at the slowest every day. If their entry time at the end of the day is going to say, here's where you stand on the job. Here's how many hours you spent versus how many you budgeted. Here's how much they cost you. Do you need to reallocate your resources to make sure this gets completed faster? Do you need to maybe send some of your cheaper workers to this job site? That's the type of business insight you get, and the type of decision making that we can help with.
I love that. And I love that you added in there that it's a fully loaded labor burden, because you guys have a couple of great ways and solutions for building out that loaded labor burden. Good stuff. Okay, I think you and I could talk about Knowify for hours. Well, let's bring in Ryan. So Ryan from Contour Audio. Ryan, tell us about Contour and what you do for Contour.
Well, I'm the CEO and president for Contour. It's a small company that I started almost 3 years ago. And essentially, we go into commercial facilities and recording studios and theaters and things like that. And we handle the acoustics to dampen down the echoes and reflections. And then we also install pro audio systems for different vendors like Soul Cycles and things like that, where they need it to be concert level loud, but they need to be able to hear the instructor over the top of it and stuff. It's a little niche that we found.
Very cool. How long have you been using Knowify?
We jumped on Knowify, gosh, I guess it's been about 4 or 5 months ago now, and committed to a year with it up front. And I did the trial for a few weeks beforehand, and then was demoing a couple other programs. And Knowify seemed to have the simplest workflow, and they had a lot of videos online and stuff that were training videos to really help you kind of work through any issues you had without having to try and get somebody on the phone. So if it's 12 o'clock and you're up late in the office trying to get some stuff done, you can find an answer without having to wait till the next morning.
You can watch a
It
video.
means the world to me that people watch the videos. Yeah. Because I put all those together just thinking like there's going to be a situation where I'm not available to chat, and I want to be able to like have them access my answers without me providing them. And so anytime I speak with someone who says like, oh, the videos have been a huge help, it's just like, thank you so much.
That's cool.
Nice.
I love that. So what are you hoping to learn more about today about Knowify, Ryan?
Well, so, we don't do multi-stage projects like some contractors and stuff do. So, Knowify actually is more robust than I think that we actually would need for our specific industry. But that's always good because, as you grow, who knows what kind of projects we may be doing, and they may have more phases and stuff. But yeah, they're basic, the basic bidding template, and then the progress billing that is where I bill 60% up front, and then 20% at the start of the job, and then 20% at the end, kind of how Taryn was talking about. And it seems to work really well, and it syncs right up with QuickBooks. So we send it across that way. As far as the templates go, I would like to, learn a little bit more about how to build those out, because we still do a lot of our budgeting and a lot of our bidding based on some Excel spreadsheets for some of our materials and labor costs and stuff like that. I'd like to get more of that stuff put into Knowify so that it was a little bit more templated in there, and we weren't trying to, fuse the two programs together. And then also for some of the verbiages for contracting, there's one button you can click where you can pull over a bunch of kind of your boilerplate contract stuff. But being that we do, audio and acoustics, I'd like to try and have multiples of those. So I don't know if there's a way that if I could put a request in for like a drop down where you could pick from a few different options to insert there, that would be cool.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
It's actually one of the most commonly requested things we hear. The idea behind the templated terms and conditions that we set up was if you have multiple sets, this gives you the ability to put them both in at the same time and then remove the ones you don't want with each contract, which not as good workflow as being able to select. We want to be able to provide that in the future as well, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. We actually also have I believe we have a feature in our enterprise tier account right now that let you have different proposal templates entirely. So not just the terms and conditions, but you can actually swap out the format and say like, okay, I would need to update the logo, my billing information, terms and conditions, and you just say like option 2, and it gives you the different format. That's something that we've been working on for a while because it's very common for our customers to have a very similar layout to what you're referring to, where it's it's the same company but doing 2 different types of work, and we need to be able to kind of update our marketing accordingly. So definitely showing you.
Yeah, so conceivably we could have a contour audio template and then a contour acoustics template.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we can definitely set up.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Good stuff. So what are the types of jobs that you do over and over that you'd like to maybe create some budget templates for?
Well, we do track and fabric, which is like a stretch fabric installed system on site. And that, there's multiple, there's the track on the outside, and then there's the substrate that goes inside that soaks up the sound. And then there's a fabric covering that goes over it. And that does kind of have some different phases to it. And it takes a little bit more estimating because it's a lot of raw materials that we bring together and build a finished product, where there's some of the other stuff that's a little easier where we buy a finished product or we buy a substrate and then we just cut it into pieces and then mount it on the wall just raw. So templating the custom stretch fabric stuff would definitely save some time.
Awesome. So yeah, something that we definitely can dive in and kind of do when you and I are working together too, right? But yeah, so Taryn, if we were going to set up a template, I know we're not doing like a demo, we don't have any video of Knowify, but kind of walk us through some of the basics of getting those templates set up.
Yeah, so in your catalog, when you're adding a new service to Knowify, there's going to be an option that says this is a template. And when you select that, it's just going to walk through the process of first saying, what are the units of this template? So what do we use to estimate? Do we estimate per square foot, linear foot, per yard? Is it gallon-based estimate? That way, when you're actually using this template, it'll prompt you how many of X unit, how many units, just to give you a more straightforward workflow on how you would be estimating this in a different software. And then once you have that in, it's going to say, what do you need to buy per square foot? I'm going to use square foot for this example. And you have 2 options. We give you the option to either say, here's my list of materials using Knowify's product database. I like that the best because if every material has a dollar figure associated with it, it's building effectively a shopping list for you, a construction shopping list, so that, again, you have this idea of never double clicking or never double entering, where I have the list as my budget that helps me quote a price, and then one click will then create a purchase order with the same list, so I don't have to keep re-entering it. But if you don't know the exact list of materials and you want to be a little bit simpler about it, you could say for every square foot, we spend X number of dollars on materials, and then you can still have cost versus budget reporting, and just add up, see if all of the materials you end up buying add up to your budget. So that's another option, is you can either say, $5 per square foot, or 5 of this item per square foot. And those, are both ways to get good cost versus budget information on Knowify. Very similar with labor, where once you have the units in, it's going to say how many hours does it take per square foot. Now, if you're working with something small like square feet, probably not going to be an hour, but you could say 5 minutes per square foot. And you can say 5 minutes of labor and 5 minutes of foreman. So if you have different types of worker, you can divide it up that way as well. It gives you a little bit more accurate budgeting. And again, based off of that loaded labor burden, we're actually giving you an estimated labor cost with this information. I know this is actually very big with a lot of our electrical contractors who have, different types of apprentice, journeyman, all different roles that they, maybe, fill different, fill similar needs on the project, but they all get paid differently. And it's nice to be able to have this estimated idea of here's how many hours we're going to spend out of each of our employees. But again, you have the option of, instead of saying here's how many hours of type of employee, you could say for every square foot, it costs us $10 in labor, and we build out a budget for you that way as well. Actually, kind of off of that, I also do, like, similar to my idea of, it's better to have a list of materials than just a dollar figure. It's nice to have hours when you're setting up these budgets, because when you track time in Knowify, it's great knowing that you stayed, close to your labor budget. But since all the prices change, the price of labor changes over the years, it's nice to have the hours as well, because that's going to be something that's going to be much more consistent. So if I end up giving the majority of my employees a raise due to inflation, I don't want to look back at a project a couple years in the past and say, oh, it only cost me $1,000 in labor, because there's a good chance that this year it's going to cost you $1,500 in labor for the same exact amount of labor. And so having that hours versus hours reporting is always very important as well.
And you can actually see budgets versus actuals based on hours, not just dollars, right, Sharon?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the benefit of when you're setting up one of these service templates, not saying $10 per square foot, but saying 5 minutes per square foot. So we're going to build out that hour budget for you.
And then later, looking back, if we were always essentially over budgeting on the hours side too, that's, again, just narrowing down the focus of how do we estimate better in the future.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Other questions that you had, Ryan, specific to stuff we're trying to accomplish in Knowify?
Well, I wanted to thank Karen for adding the ability to see scheduling on the mobile app, because when I very first started, we couldn't see that, so that was a nice add there. And then I'm hoping that one of the secret things that you guys are working on is being able to take pictures on site with the app and have them load into the folder for that project.
I would love to take credit for the scheduling being part of the part of the app. I'd like to take credit for anything that we develop, but we do have an extraordinary team of developers that's building all of this, and they'll be happy to get the praise. As far as uploading into folders, I actually don't know exactly what's on the pipeline with that, so definitely nothing exact that I can promise in there. But again, we're always looking to improve. I know in the coming year, I'd say improvements to the smartphone app are going to be very high priority for us. So definitely a lot of room there.
Ryan, did you have another question? Sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Do you use, so you're using the schedule and you're able to see it on the mobile app. So do you use the scheduling and time tracking features?
We do, yeah. We've just started to schedule everybody that way, and being that you want everybody to clock in per the job so that you can look at your labor costs for the job. We're trying to be much more diligent. I've got a new guy on board who's one of his sole missions is helping him project manage and make sure that everybody gets entered on the schedule for specific projects, so that when they get to the project, they can log in and clock their time for that specific project. The first few weeks when we got it going was just kind of everybody was clocking in under a general template, and that doesn't really help you out that much. So we're starting to streamline just a little bit, baby steps towards being able to get better data. But it's coming along.
I think that's a good point too. And Taryn, you can touch on this maybe even a little bit better than I can, but every time that we've started working with a client and helping them do some Knowify implementation, there's so much good stuff in Knowify, and so many owners especially want to jump into everything with both feet. So what do you think, Taryn, is a good sort of regimented, let's take it one step at a time pace for implementing Knowify?
Yeah, I think, off of what Ryan was saying, kind of starting small and expanding what you end up using is going to be the best way to onboard your company onto Knowify. And that goes through a variety of things. It could be selecting specific features, selecting, specific levels of detail in your reporting that you want. And then once you have that firmly implemented, it's easier to then add on additional pieces. A lot of this is actually visible in what we call our job costing styles. The simple, advanced, professional, which is basically asking, do you want to set up a budget for the project? If so, how detailed do you want it to be? What do you do first? Do you quote a price, or do you budget first? And they are kind of built for you to graduate through. So we find a lot of our users start with Knowify by using simple, which is very straightforward to the common flow we see a lot of our customers using, which is, well, first we just send something to our customer, and if they sign it, then we see how much we spent, how much we made. And then our next tier up is called advanced, where it's, okay, well, we send a lined out contract to the customer, but when we track the cost, we don't just want to track the cost of the job. We want to track the cost of the line items that we quoted, so we can see cost versus revenue, not just at the job level, but at the individual service level. And then the final flow saying, okay, well, now we know how much we're spending on each individual item. So instead of starting the process by sending something to the customer, I want to start the process by budgeting out each of those items, and then I use my budget to quote a price to the customer. And again, that's really what we want our contractors to do, is follow this workflow that's not just about using Knowify, but about budgeting first, then quoting a price, then tracking your cost versus budget, and then sending your invoice. So you are really doing your absolute best there to stay on track with this project as you go.
Yeah, and I think it's really good, because I loved something that Ryan said, which was, they saw that they had the mobile app available to use and just began the implementation of using it by saying, okay, let's just get everybody checking in. So I don't think that's really a bad first step, Ryan, right? Let's just at least train them on how to check in. And even if that means we just set up one job and it's called general and they all can check in there, I think, you always have to take sort of smaller little digestible steps towards getting towards that big goal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think that was a bad way to start. And I think it gets them to the point okay, now we're going to take it to the next level, and now we're going to have all those hours going to each project that you guys are actually working on.
And even on that general function, I was still able to look and, set a date range for, when we were working on a project, or, set it from when we had just started something 2 or 3 days prior. And I could get a general sense of where my labor cost was for that project, without, having it be too detailed. But, I was getting a general sense, which was more than I had before. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't coin this term, but I often do use it with our clients, which is, we're going to be changing the wheels on the bus as it's driving down the road. So
Right.
Always keeping in mind that we're all still having to go out and do the work every day while we're implementing this whole entirely new powerful system. So let's just take it in these small chunks that everybody can just digest at a short period of time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways that you can start small and expand. When it comes to time tracking, sometimes my advice is don't have every single one of your users start tracking time with the app on the same day, especially if you are a company that has 50 people in the field. Then every one of them is going to have to adjust to the new app. They got to learn their login information. You're opening up the door for way too many people to reach out at once. I say grab two guys at a time, have them work through it for a week. If it works for them, awesome. They get the next two guys. That way it's a little bit more manageable of having your company grow and change and start using Knowify. The whole onboarding is a little bit simpler. And then beyond that, with Knowify as a software, because we touch so many different parts of the business, people say like, okay, I just want to pull the rug out from under my business right now and switch out everything with Knowify. It's nice in theory, but it's hard to train the entire team. So sometimes what I recommend is, figure out who has the biggest pain points right now, and we'll first solve their problem. So, right now, Knowify is just our software for quoting prices and e-signature. Then once we're comfortable with that, now we actually use it for our invoicing as well. Now we have the revenue side of our business in, so we started entering our bills. If you can take it one feature at a time, it's just a much smoother workflow of getting started, so that you don't have too many things you have to learn out at once and have too many cooks in the kitchen. You want to be able to manage. Okay, here's the person that's using Knowify, that's learning Knowify this week. Let's make sure they're sorted out, and then we'll go work on the next guys next week.
Yeah, I think that's all great.
Yeah.
So Ryan, what are your next steps that you think you want to take within Knowify?
Building out that template is going to be, or some of those templates for the different types of jobs that we do is going to be good. And then moving past the simple bidding and starting to do the advanced bidding so that we can start to track by lines. And then, on that same level, and then at that point when we're on site, sometimes people work on a couple different projects throughout the day. So getting them to be able to switch between those projects so that the data is accurate. Otherwise, if they forget to switch, then it's going to look like we spent a lot more money on this part of it and not that part of it. So, that's all that kind of training and getting people used to the app. And so, we'll have to see. Luckily, I don't have a huge crew, so and they're all pretty smart people. So I think that I can probably get them on board with it pretty quickly.
That's having a smart crew is definitely one of the best things you can do in the industry. It's something I've learned a lot. People who have smart, trustworthy crews just run such better businesses in my experience. So nice to hear.
Well, that's been the one benefit of the pandemic for me, is that there's been a lot of people in the music industry who I was associated with who didn't have any work right now, and all the concerts are shut down, and they all kind of did some self-reflection and evaluation of what their what their profession was and the the vulnerabilities to it. And so I had some great new people that came on board just about 2 months ago, and it's really been nice to have some new fresh, smart people jumping in the game. So
Awesome.
I love that. I love that we get to end on that, because I love this idea of silver linings throughout the pandemic. It's something that I've been trying to do this whole year, is find those little silver linings. So thank you for that, Ryan. I love that as like the little, let's tie the bow on this first podcast. So thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Taryn, Ryan, thank you guys so much for agreeing to be here today and have this conversation with me. I'm looking forward to talking to both of you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. Nice to meet you, Taryn.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Construction Junction. To find out more about the junction between accounting and construction, please email hello@theprofitconstructors.com.